It was the kind of story that made headlines and sent a chill down every spine. A marriage that started with love but ended in blood. A love story gone wrong, unraveling the subtle cracks that grew into fatal fractures. This is the story of Tim and Becky Bliefnick, a seemingly ordinary couple, each step of their journey watched by friends, family, and neighbors who thought they knew them. On a live TV show, Tim made a dark joke that now rings ominously prophetic when asked, "What's the biggest mistake you've made at your wedding?" His reply was, "Honey, I love you, but said I do." 3 years after, his words rippled through the air. A bullet tore through their love story, sealing their fate. To outsiders, they were the perfect couple: Tim, the hometown hero, and Becky, the dedicated nurse and mother of three. But beneath the polished surface lurked a web of resentment, jealousy, and deception that would turn their love story into one of the most chilling cases of betrayal and murder the town of Quincy had ever seen. How did a marriage that began in blissful union turn into violence and ultimately a murder that shook an entire community? Tim Bliefnick was a star college football player and well-known local salesman, while Becky Bliefnick was a mother of three sons, aged 12, 10, and 5. She worked as a nurse at Blessing Hospital in Quincy. They were married for 11 years. They first met in college. According to Becky's sister, Becky was so happy. Her wedding was beautiful. It was the perfect situation. Tim was a responsible guy. He had a great job. They had a house. She was overexcited. So very quickly they had 2 sons, and it made it even better because it was a mutual decision by the couple. But things changed a little bit when Becky gave birth to her second son. The years following the second son's birth were difficult, and it took a toll on them. However, despite this, Becky decided to go back to nursing school and get her degree. This didn't sit well with Tim, and their marriage became worse. As the COVID-19 pandemic raged on, Becky found herself facing not only the challenges of her demanding nursing career, but also the crumbling of her once perfect marriage. Tim's resentment towards her long hours at the hospital had grown into full-blown animosity, leading to heated arguments and bitter fights. Despite their picture-perfect wedding and seemingly stable life, Becky confided in her close friends and colleagues about the struggles she was facing in her marriage. The once supportive and loving husband had turned into a source of stress and unhappiness for Becky. He no longer contributed to their household responsibilities, instead criticizing her for not keeping the house clean to his standards. He was not contributing. He was not supportive. He chastised her about the house not being clean. He never said, "Can I help you clean the house?" It was always her job, Becky's sister, Sarah Riley, revealed. The strain on their marriage became even more apparent during the pandemic, as Becky opened up about Tim's lack of interest in being married to her anymore. The facade of their perfect relationship began to crumble, leaving Becky feeling like a single married mother, shouldering the burden of their failing marriage alone. As the tension between Becky and Tim continued to escalate, Becky found herself questioning the future of their relationship. The once loving and supportive partner had become a source of stress and unhappiness, pushing Becky to the brink of despair. With the pandemic raging on and their marriage hanging by a thread, Becky was faced with a difficult decision. She was in a dilemma. Either she continued to fight for her marriage that seemed to be falling apart, or she finally find the courage to walk away from a relationship that no longer brought her happiness. Meanwhile, one day at work, Becky became scared and devastated by sad news. The news of her colleague's death had shaken her to the core. The fact that her own husband was the prime suspect in the murder only added to her distress. She couldn't believe that the man she had once loved could be capable of such a heinous act. Feeling overwhelmed, Becky reached for her phone and sent a message to her sister. "If something ever happens to me, please make sure the number one person of interest is Tim, because that is who would do something to me. I'm putting this in writing because I'm fearful that he will somehow harm me, come after me, or will try to do something to me that takes away from the kids, or the kids away from me. He already has lied multiple times to paint himself as a victim and me as the perpetrator when it is absolutely the other way around. No, I have not sent this to Mom and Dad because I don't want them to be out of their mind with worry. And as the days passed, Becky found herself caught in a whirlwind of chaos. Her marriage to Tim had been crumbling for months, and now it seemed to be falling apart completely. Tim had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The situation between them had become so toxic that they were advised to stay away from each other, only communicating when necessary for the sake of their children. Becky agreed to the arrangement, but it didn't stop the constant fighting and bickering between them. They fought about money, they fought about custody, they fought about who would possess their house. It was a whole mess. As the months went by, Becky tried to move on with her life. She started seeing a new man, someone who made her feel alive and happy again. They went on romantic dates, shared intimate moments, and dreamed of a future together. On Valentine's Day, before she passed away, she had some sort of romantic date with him. Before she was murdered, Becky and Tim were divorced. The night of her murder was filled with an unimaginable horror. This is vivid, descriptive imagery of what the murder looked like. On the night of February 23rd, 2023, Becky was alone in her home in Quincy as her boys were staying at their father's house. As Tim pedaled furiously on his new bike towards Becky's house, his mind was consumed with rage and jealousy. He couldn't believe that she had moved on so quickly after their divorce, and with another man no less. The thought of her happy with someone else made his blood boil, and he was determined to make her pay for his pain. He had seen her and her new man on a nice romantic date on Valentine's Day, and he swore to make her taste his wrath. He planned every detail of the murder, from studying how to break into a house with a crowbar to researching how to clean gunpowder off his hands. He knew he had to be careful and leave no trace behind. As he arrived at Becky's house, his heart pounded with anticipation. He knew she would be there. He parked his bike a few blocks away, making sure the lack of reflectors would keep it hidden in the darkness. Using the crowbar he had brought with him, Tim broke into the house through one of the children's windows. His heart raced as he crept through the darkened house towards Becky's bedroom. Without hesitation, Tim kicked open the bedroom door and raised the stolen gun he had taken from her belongings. Becky's eyes widened in shock as she realized who was standing before her. She reached for her phone to call for help, but Tim was too quick. He grabbed her hand and the phone fell to the ground, forgotten. In a blind rage, Tim fired shot after shot at Becky, the sound of the gun muffled because of the homemade silencer he had made. The Aldi bags, perhaps. 14 bullets tore through her body, leaving a gruesome scene in the bathroom. And then, as quickly as he had come, Tim turned and left, disappearing into the night. So, on February 23rd, 2023, Becky's phone showed she attempted to call 911 at 1:10 a.m. the night she was killed, giving police a time frame for her murder. This discovery sent shockwaves through the small town of Quincy. Becky was a beloved member of the community, known for her kindness and generosity. Police immediately began investigating, checking surveillance footage from nearby homes. They discovered an unknown person had been seen walking between houses in the middle of the night in the days leading up to Becky's murder. The footage was too grainy to identify the person, but it seemed like someone was casing Becky's house. Further investigation led police to a school bus parking lot, where they found footage of someone on a bike around the time of the murder. The abandoned bike was located half a mile from Tim Bliefnick's home. This discovery was a major breakthrough in the case. On March 1st, 2023, officers obtained a search warrant for Tim's house. They found incriminating evidence on his computer, including searches for how to pry open a door with a crowbar and how to wash gunpowder off hands. They also found shell casings that matched those found at the crime scene. It was revealed that Tim and Becky were going through a bitter divorce, with Becky seeking an order of protection against Tim's father. Becky had planned to expose a family secret that would have devastated Tim and his family. Tim Bliefnick was charged with his estranged wife's murder. His trial was intense, with evidence mounting against him. On May 23, 2023, exactly 3 months after Becky Bliefnick was murdered, the courtroom was packed as Tim Bliefnick went on trial for her murder. The air was thick with tension as the prosecution and defense prepared to present their cases. Prosecutor Josh Jones painted a grim picture of Becky's final moments, describing how Tim had coldly pointed a gun at her and ended her life. The jury listened intently, their gazes flickering between Tim and the empty chair where Becky should have been sitting. But Tim's defense attorney, Casey Schnack, was not about to let the prosecution steamroll her client. In a fiery opening statement, she argued that the case was riddled with reasonable doubt. She pointed out inconsistencies in the evidence and raised questions about the reliability of witness testimonies. Casey focused on the lack of concrete evidence linking Tim to the crime scene. She tore apart the prosecution's claims about the shell casings and the grocery store bags, insisting that they were flimsy at best. She argued that the bike found near the scene had no DNA evidence linking it to Tim, and that the surveillance footage was inconclusive. As the trial unfolded, Casey continued to chip away at the prosecution's case. She tried to expose flaws in the timeline of events and cast doubt on the validity of the phone searches, but it didn't work. The evidence on Tim was overwhelming and everybody could see it. With each passing day, the jury's confidence in Tim's innocence wavered. On May 31, 2023, Tim was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The town of Quincy breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that justice had been served for Becky. Her sons now live with her parents, who are in the process of adopting them. The community came together to support the family during this difficult time. The truth behind her death was finally revealed, and it sent shockwaves through their small community. The mystery of what had truly happened that fateful night was finally solved, but the pain and heartache it left behind would never truly heal. To this day, Tim claims he didn't do it. He didn't murder his wife. As we come to the end of this tragic story, we're left to consider the painful reality of a life cut short and the heart-wrenching impact on everyone touched by it. This case reminds us of the subtle fractures that can grow within relationships and how unresolved pain and resentment can spiral into unimaginable actions. It's a lesson in vigilance, not just for our own well-being, but for recognizing signs of distress in those around us. Becky's tragic story shows us the importance of listening to our instincts, seeking support when in toxic situations, and understanding the profound effect that words and actions have on our loved ones. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? How can we work to recognize and address the warning signs of a deteriorating relationship before it's too late? And in our own lives, how can we balance love and individuality, ensuring that our relationships don't become sources of resentment or pain? These are questions worth reflecting on, as they touch on issues many people face, albeit in less extreme forms. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your perspectives may help others who are facing similar struggles. If you found this story compelling, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We have many more true crime stories and episodes to unravel, each with their own lessons and mysteries. Stay tuned, and as always, stay aware, stay safe.